You say that you can cry on command. What do you think about?
Going into my grandmother's home after my mom passed.
That makes you cry.
Yeah, that was a real uncomfortable feeling for me.
There it is. You're crying. There it is. 50's got it going. You got the tears going. You are a good actor.
I didn't communicate well with the loss of my mom. I actually never really spoke to anybody about it. She was everything. Like, she was like my mother, my father.
Have you ever longed for a father?
I had my grandfather as a father figure. When I have my son, I look at him like I'm having the ability to create a better version of myself. Like my little boy, he's 12, like Marquise. I think everybody knows he's the reason that I'm successful. My son is my motivation. He's the reason why I changed directions when I was in the street to me actually writing music full time.
Mr. Jackson did this. Why do you say that?
He threatened me on Monday.
He did?
He threatened me. Look, watch what I'll do. I'll have someone come kill you. He threatened me. We were together for 13 years, and this is what he's trying to do. He tried to kill me and his own child.
Lawbreeze and Gentlegrams, the $50 slaughtered by the sons and daughters of T.I. and Tiny got slimy sliding a pic of Tip's wifey on IG and unleashed a tight spree of shots sent by every member of the Harris household. The horrifying harsh reality to unfold from T.I. unloading on 50 is that the untold stories of family missing from 50's life is sickening. What do I mean? Well, stick around to find out, but first let's make the count of the like and subscribe buttons mount like a sprout.
I study
Rapaholics
for a living.
50 Cent has had a multi-decade track record of violating anyone he opposes to the maximum degree. He's built a plethora of enemies throughout his lifetime, and once he feels you crossed him, there are no limits to the madness. We saw that transpire in 50 Cent's issues with Diddy, a nearly 20-year back and forth between the two moguls that resulted in 50 Cent getting his revenge on one of the biggest platforms imaginable, displaying Diddy's character in a fashion that will be nearly impossible to come back from. He's the man behind the documentary that put the magnifying glass on not just Diddy's horrible actions, but also his upbringing, the abuse he may have faced as a child, his mother's influence on Diddy's behavior.
You're not gonna believe this, but I just got a call and Puffy's confirmed for Shreveport. It's lit! Nah. That nigga can't come. He fuck around. Everybody be scared to drink. Coffee cups. Fucking wake up, your butt sore. Look, if I didn't say anything, you would interpret it as the hip-hop is fine with his behaviors.
One would logically argue that it's quite extreme to go from rap and vodka rivalry to Netflix narratives about your opposition's childhood and relationship with his mother while your opposition is incarcerated. But like I said, there are no limits with 50 Cent. We saw this again very recently in his back and forth with T.I., an issue that stemmed over a rejected request for a versus battle, a celebration of catalogs, turned into 50 Cent disrespecting T.I.'s wife, who's also the mother of his children. But T.I. completely flipped that on its head. One of the biggest rebuttals T.I. had in his back and forth with 50 was the fact that he didn't need 50 on a versus stage with him to celebrate his legacy. He could instead gather around with his family and not just celebrate his legacy with them, but also band together with two of his sons to defend their mother's honor, with them all releasing their own individual diss tracks aimed at 50 Cent. And I think of all the words flung back and forth in that battle between 50 and T.I., none stung harder than when T.I. posted this. It was a video of him premiering his new 50 Cent diss track at a dinner table with his entire family, sitting right next to his mother, with the caption reading, "My biggest flex is being able to protect my mama till I could provide her a better life. Happy birthday, Mom." Now, if you know anything about 50 Cent's past, or, if you've been keeping up with this whole T.I. and 50 beef and all the diss tracks that T.I.'s sons have sent 50's way, then you know why a caption like this would sting so hard. But if you find yourself asking, why is 50 Cent so okay and why is he so quick to start disrespecting other people's family members? Why is family such a sore spot for 50 Cent? Why is 50 Cent so ruthless in general? Well, there may be a very deep reason for this dark behavior, and a question you gotta ask yourself is, has 50 Cent dug himself into such a deep corner and lost so many people throughout his life where at this point he's basically all alone? 50 Cent faced abandonment issues from the very beginning. His mother actually had him at a very early age. She was just 15 when 50 Cent was born, and she didn't come from money. So ultimately her only two choices were to either go on government assistance or take advantage of the environment they were living in and start selling drugs. See, 50 Cent was born at the cusp of the crack epidemic that plagued New York all throughout the 80s and 90s. 50 was born in 1975 in Queens, and his mother immediately started selling drugs. 50 said because of that, he was actually spoiled by her early on.
So the option, having a child at 15 at that point, was to go on welfare or to hustle. And she chose that lifestyle and to provide.
The hustling lifestyle.
She chose that to provide for me, and it made me feel like I was prioritized because every time I seen her, it felt like Christmas.
50's mother was always there for him, always supportive. However, 50 actually grew up never knowing his real father. He would ask his mom why a bunch of the kids in school had fathers, but 50 himself didn't, and his mother told him that he was actually born through the Immaculate Conception, comparing him to Jesus, using that as the excuse for her why he didn't have a father. So you can see from an early age, not only did 50's mother support him and give him the confidence he needed to become the mogul that we know him as today, but she also tried to shield him and protect him from the harsh realities of the environment that they lived in. And for 50, as long as he had his mother, life was fine.
You've never known your father? Still don't know?
No.
Because your mother always told you?
Yeah, my mom, there was a time I was in the park and I saw a guy throwing a ball to a little guy, as a kid, and I asked my mother, she was reading a book. I said, Mom, who is that? And she said, oh, it's some little boy throwing the ball with his father. And I said, how come I don't have a father? She said, oh, you was born through the Immaculate Conception like Jesus. She told me that, and I didn't realize that something was wrong with what she said until I said it to my grandmother. My grandmother said, she told you that? Your mother's crazy.
So for a moment you believed that, oh, I just didn't have a father.
Like I said, from 50's conscious perspective, having a father didn't necessarily have an obvious negative impact on him at a young age. Not only because he had a strong supportive mother who did everything she could for him, but beyond just her, 50 also had his 2 grandparents and their 8 other children, his mother's brothers and sisters. So 50 grew up with a strong support system.
So for a moment you believed that, oh, I just didn't have a father.
Yeah, and I didn't have reason to ever question my mom. She did everything for me. You know, so when she said it, it was like, okay.
Okay, I don't have a father because
I'm special. So
I was
don't
just
have
like
to
Jesus.
Those other kids have fathers, not me.
In fact, even though 50 Cent didn't have his biological father by his side, as a child, his grandfather actually somewhat took on the role of a father figure as he was very active in 50's life. This will play an important role in the story very shortly.
Have you ever longed for a father? And I use the word long on purpose. There's a difference between wanting a father and longing for one.
Yeah, I think I had my grandfather as a father figure, as representation of that. And when I have my son, I look at him like I'm having the ability to create a better version of myself.
On the outside looking in and on the surface, what we've reviewed so far appears to be not the most conventional, but also not the most chaotic or detrimental upbringing for a child, right? Supportive mother, strong father figure in his grandfather. Yeah, the means to which his mother was earning income may have not been kosher, but money wasn't necessarily a problem for them. And 50 had the tools and people around him that were needed to keep a level head and be raised right in an environment that wasn't necessarily the safest. But if you want 50's accord of things, by the time he turned 8, an event happened that, if it hadn't, 50 claims he'd be a much different person today, and that was the tragic loss of his mother. In 1983, Sabrina Jackson died in what authorities believe was a deliberate killing disguised as a fire inside her apartment in Southside Jamaica, Queens. Sabrina had raised 50 in that apartment, all alone since she was a teenager. And on that night in 1983, she was found unconscious inside the apartment after it filled with gas and caught fire. According to 50 Cent's beliefs and investigators' suspicions, someone had first put something in Sabrina's drink, likely some sort of sedative or drug, specifically so she would lose consciousness. After she was incapacitated, the gas in the apartment was turned on, filling the room while she was unable to wake up or escape. The apartment then ignited, and it left her dead inside. The killing was never solved, but many believe it was connected to disputes in the street drug trade that Sabrina was involved in, also that she could make a living to provide for her son. Sabrina was only 23 when she died. 50 was not there to witness the event itself, but his grandparents told him that his mother was gone and she would not be coming back. He was in denial. He was just 8 years old. He didn't know what was going on. He thought maybe she had just left for a bit, but she would definitely be coming back.
My mother passed when I was like 8 years old. I went to live with my grandparents. And she had me when she was 15, so, back then it wasn't as common as the young girls have children at 15, a little more now than it did then. So at that point, she started hustling to be able to provide for me at that point. And she got killed when I was like 8 years old.
So when you say hustling, she was involved with what? She was...
Yeah, selling drugs.
Selling drugs?
Yeah.
And if you ever thought 50 Cent couldn't exude any human vulnerable emotions, you might be right, aside from this one particular instance. The loss of his mother still weighs on 50 Cent to this day. While having an absent father is a horrible thing in and of itself, 50 was able to compensate for the absence by turning to his mother or grandparents in a time of need. But when he lost his mother, it was like he lost his world, his identity, his reason to care. The only thing he cared about was her. In fact, when he trains for movie roles to this day, he's able to cry on command because the one thing he thinks of that could instantly bring tears to his eyes is the fact that his mother is no longer around.
You say that you can cry on command. Does that come in handy in the movies?
Yeah, at different points. I could do it now. I could.
Yeah, let me see you cry because I've always admired actors who can do this. What do you think about to get you going?
Going into my grandmother's home after my mom passed.
That makes you cry.
Yeah, that was a real uncomfortable feeling for me.
There it is. You're crying. There it is. 50's got it going. You got the tears going. You are a good actor.
Or is it real?
Whoa.
Luckily, in the midst of tragedy, 50 Cent still had his grandparents to turn to. He came to live in their home, the very home that his mother was raised in when she passed away. And as a matter of fact, he now owns that very same childhood home. But back then, he was nowhere near rich, and in fact, he would quickly start dying to try. Like I mentioned before, when 50's mother was around, he had that financial comfort. But moving in now to a household where his grandparents were taking care of their 8 children, they didn't necessarily have much to provide for 50. However, what they couldn't provide in monetary value, they gave back in emotional support. Out of all her 8 kids, 50 says that his grandmother treated him quite special compared to the rest because when she looked at him, she saw her daughter in his eyes.
I found I had financial comfort when my mom was around. When she passed, my grandmother showed additional attention to me because when she looked at me, she see my mom's face on top of mine. It was the only one of her 9 children that died. So she'd look at me and then she'd go, come in. Right, and as far as finance is concerned, there was no money because it was 9 kids.
With money being tight, with 50 living in a small house with 8 kids and 2 grandparents, with him slowly starting to realize that maybe his mother was not coming back, 50 realized that he may have to make the same decision she once had to. And while he now owns the very house where he came to this decision at, it was in his grandmother's basement where 50 decided he would get rich or die trying, ironically on the same streets that took his mother.
Which he now owns.
my mom passed away, I had to come live with my grandparents, and this is the house.
He says going back stirs up a complicated mix of emotions.
When I say I was hustling at 12, it was between 3 and 6 when my grandparents thought I was in the after-school program. It wasn't like just being out there, like, you know.
After losing his mother, 50 was not a very sociable kid. He turned dark, cold, quiet. He didn't communicate well after the loss of his mother, and he escaped by spending time all alone in his grandmother's basement.
This what kind of got me away from them upstairs, the basement. You know, like, even though it was small, it was bad. I don't know, I was really running away from having to deal with people. I didn't communicate well with the loss of my mom. I actually never really spoke to anybody about it. She was everything. Like, she was like my mother, my father, everything. Like, and then when, like, my grandparents always take care of me. You know, like my grandmother, she did everything she could do for me.
50 witnessed a lot at an early age. Remember, we're not even at the point in the story where 50 celebrates his 10th birthday, and he's already traveling this world with his 2 parents gone, living in a house with 10 other individuals, and growing up in an environment that was being plagued by the crack epidemic. 50 watched his grandfather earn an honest living, but that wasn't enough to sometimes even fulfill the basic needs of the 8 children in this household. Remember, 50's mom had him when she was just 15, so a lot of her siblings that were being raised in this same house as 50 now were young as well. So he watched his grandmother budget every single one of his grandfather's paychecks. She was the one in charge of all the finances, and 50 says that's because his grandfather didn't want her to look at life as if he wasn't providing enough for her. Instead, he would give her every single paycheck so that she knew the actual dollar amount he was earning for all those hours he was actually putting in. And from that point, she wouldn't look at him like he wasn't giving or doing enough for her, but instead, financially, she fully understood why he couldn't really provide much more for her.
We didn't have much. I grew up with my grandparents. You know, 'cause my mom, she got killed when I was 8 years old. I had to live with them full time, and I went and stayed with them. And it was like, we was living on my grandfather's income. So he was real old fashioned. He's representation of tradition for me. So he would just come and give my grandmother his check. And I never understood that. Growing up, I was like, you just gonna give her the whole check? He was like, yeah, what's the matter with you? Like, and then later, like as an adult, he'll tell me, he said, you couldn't see it and you won't understand it because you was a baby. But he said, when it gave your mama the check, it stopped her from looking at things I couldn't give her. Because she was aware of what was really there, it made my responsibilities her responsibilities. So she had to pay the bills. And because she was paying the bills, she knew she may require some black pumps because when we look good, we feel good. But she may not necessarily have to have red on the bottom. It may not have to be Christian Louboutin, the expensive ones. It may just have to be nice black pumps for her to wear. If she knows what financially you can bear, she don't feel deprived because she can't have them at that point. If you're being frugal for us, then you're saying, no, I don't need those right now. You crazy? No, I don't need that. I'll get a pair of these or something else that's there, but they look nice, same 6-inch heels and stuff, but they're not Christian Louboutins, and just give me those. I'll be fine with that. And if you understand where you're at financially, you make the logical decision. Versus if you didn't have an understanding because he was handling things, then you could feel deprived. You could feel like there's something else out there that you're not experiencing.
But unlike his grandfather, 50 was determined to reach levels of riches and success that no one in his bloodline had seen. He wanted to escape the neighborhood that they were growing up in, but he knew that doing so would come at a cost. The same way his mother was faced with the tough challenge of either living off of welfare or selling drugs on street corners in order to provide for her son, 50 knew he was suffering that same fate. And with the crack epidemic only intensifying throughout New York, as 50 slowly started growing up, he realized that the people around him who he knew were making money were all involved in a certain lifestyle. He realized and made the tough decision at the age of 12 that he had to start, wait for it guys, getting rich or die trying.
I used to hustle in front of these stores. When I first started, it was so much money, it was unbelievable. Everybody was getting hot. The only people that I seen that had what was representation of financial freedom were people involved in that lifestyle.
50's grandparents thought he was in after-school programs, but from 3 to around 6 o'clock, that's when he would spend most of his time either boxing in a gym or selling drugs on the street. He would bring guns and drug money to school with him, but remember, again, his grandmother looked at him like he was special. She saw his mother in 50's eyes, so she would hear of 50 getting into trouble, but she never believed it. She couldn't believe that her little 12-year-old grandson was doing the type of things he was accused of.
I think my grandmother would be proud of me. She, she really didn't know everything. She would look like if she hears some of the stuff from outside, she'd go, "This just bothers me. They come here, they knock on my door and talk to me about my baby. Wait, don't tell me stories about my baby before. I know he didn't do that. Carti didn't do nothing like that." And I come in the house and I did all that shit.
And as for 50, well, regardless of all the evil that he saw in this world, he loved his grandmother as if she was his own mother. And when he was around her, the outside world did not matter.
This 50 Cent, I'm with my grandmother. It's my grandmother right here. I love her to death. It's my grandmother right here. My grandmother, she like when my mom's passed, she took me in and shit. You know what I mean? But I always was with her, around. I was close to my grandmother. See that? I went and got my mother a car. My mom got a little Benz and shit. She happy as hell, my grandmother. Cause my mom's passed when I was 8 years old. So I call my grandmother my mother. You know? She got 9 kids. Ain't none of them ever did shit for her. So I got the chance. It feels good to be able to do something for her. So I got a little car and shit. She happy with that.
Now, the trouble only started escalating with 50 from here. By the 10th grade, he was caught by metal detectors at Andrew Jackson High School and got arrested, and that's when he came clean to his grandparents. He wasn't hiding anymore. He said, "I was embarrassed that I got arrested like that, but after I got arrested, I stopped hiding it. I was telling my grandmother openly, I sell drugs." And he continued selling drugs, but by the time he was around 19, he was actually arrested for selling 4 vials of cocaine to an undercover police officer.
Yo, you 5-0?
No, I'm 87. How flattering. Now give me drugs, scummy drug dealer.
You got it, mayor of our city.
A couple weeks later, police searched his home and found heroin, 10 ounces of crack, and a pistol. And at that point in 1994, 50 Cent was sentenced to 3 to 9 years in prison, but served 6 months in a boot camp and earned his GED. You would think these insane experiences, happening all before the age of 25, would help 50 turn a new leaf, focus on a better future, and you'd be partially right, but not exactly for the reasons you think. 50 Cent's life would begin to change for the better on October 13th, 1996, when his girlfriend at the time, Shanika Tompkins, would give birth to his firstborn son, Marquise. When his son was born, 50 knew he had a decision to make. He could stay in the streets, continue committing crimes, potentially end up in jail or dead, or he could pursue a career path that could get him as rich as drug dealing, but not come with any of the legal trouble. And that's exactly what he did. 50 credits his son being the very reason that he decided to pick up a mic and pursue a career in hip-hop. And he says that once he made the decision to become a rapper, there was no plan B and there was no going back. But because of that, he had to give up and sacrifice a lot of the wealth that he accumulated from being in the streets, from hustling. He used that money to barely stay afloat, barely supporting him, Shaniqua, his girlfriend at the time, and their son Marquise. The money started drying up, and 50 did everything he could to make this career in hip-hop work. All for his son. That'll play an important role very shortly.
My little boy, he's 12, Marquise. I think everybody knows he's the reason that I'm successful. My son is my motivation. He's the reason why I changed directions when I was in the street to me actually write music full-time. When I decided to write music, I went cold turkey. I totally stopped what I was doing in the street. And it was a time that I actually didn't have anything, because the things that I acquired when I was hustling, they kind of went away. I had to get rid of it in order to have enough to stay afloat. And things don't happen when you want them to happen all the time. It happens when it's supposed to happen. When God has a plan for you to actually be successful, it'll happen for you. So you got to be persistent, consistent, and work until it actually works. But you know, I didn't have a plan B. I said it absolutely has to work. You know, so I stayed focused and I made it happen.
50 Cent was broke, just trying to make it. It would take him about 2 years to land his first placement on a major record, which came from Onyx's song React in 1998. About a year later in 1999, 50 Cent gets signed to Columbia Records and plans to release his debut album, Power of a Dollar, with them. But of course, as you guys probably know, everything went wrong. In May of the year 2000, when 50 Cent was shot 9 times outside his grandmother's house. The very same house that he grew up in after he lost his mother, that he was now raising his son in. He now nearly lost his own life within it as well. And 50 spoke on this in interviews, further emphasizing the fact that his son had seen it all with him, and his son was the reason why 50 was trying to make a better life for himself. He was asked, "What's your priority in life now?" And 50 said, "When my son, who he called 25 Cent, came into my life, my priorities changed because I wanted to have the relationship with him that I didn't have with my father. His life is different. Based on what I've been able to provide, a different environment for him to grow up in. He's still been altered by some of the scenarios and situations that I've been through, though. He was actually in the house when I got shot. He heard the shots go off, but he never saw me. He just saw me in the hospital after." And when 50 was asked if he spoils his son, he said, "I can give him more than what I received as a kid and not overdo it. I try to not overspoil him. He can't have any and everything he wants. He doesn't ask for much. It doesn't take much to make him happy. That's it." Now remember that last quote, you guys, because it's really going to foreshadow everything else that comes with the future of 50's relationship with his firstborn son. In the meantime, before 50 struck his deal with Interscope, with Eminem and Dr. Dre, he was still on the come up. He actually cites being shot as obviously, the worst period of his life, but it wasn't the worst for the physical pain he endured, but instead the mental pain of not knowing what the future held for him financially. He would pick up the phone to Columbia Records, who again he had signed a deal with the year prior, and they weren't answering the phone. The Power of the Dollar, the debut album that 50 Cent had already recorded, that was already leaked, that was scrapped. That was shelved. It was looking like everything 50 had worked for might have been stripped away from him. But one thing that 50 did still have by this point in time was a strong relationship with his son and the mother of his son, Shaniqua Tompkins. They were still around when 50 didn't have anything. In fact, Marquise was even in the Wanksta video, and his mother was part of an interview that 50 did with Rolling Stone when he first made it, right when Get Rich or Die Trying had released. This interview took place in early 2003, and you could see wherever they were actually doing the interview, Shaniqua Tompkins was sitting right there next to 50, because when he's asked about his son, it's actually her that pulls a picture out of her wallet and calls him a hip-hop baby. She said that one time he was watching TV with another kid, and a person got shot and died in the TV show. And he said to the other kid, "That's weak. My daddy got shot a lot of times. He didn't die." I had to tell him that was a special situation. You're not supposed to get hit that many times and still live. Now around this time, 50 Cent would start having more money than he knew what to do with. He bought Mike Tyson's old house, an 18-bedroom mansion, but for whatever reason, he was living in it all alone. And when he was asked in an interview later that year in 2003, he would admit that he doesn't actually have a very close relationship with his son by this point in time. Aside from supporting him financially and making sure he has everything taken care of, due to his now very busy schedule, by the time 50 got rich, he didn't have a lot of spare time to spend raising Marquise.
Well, now that you're grown, you're the leader of your household. What is your family foundation now? Is it just you, or?
It is just me. Like, I don't spend much time with my son. I'm traveling, I just take care of him financially and make sure that his school and everything's set up properly. But to be honest with you, I'm running around.
All right, so let me ask you, you got the big house now. You moved into Mike Tyson's house. Do you just live in the house by yourself, or you got
right
family?
Now. That's me.
That's a big house, man.
Mm-hmm.
How many rooms is it?
It's 18 bedrooms.
And you're there by yourself?
Yeah.
Now, although 50 Cent wasn't there physically, like he said, he was definitely more than willing to provide by any financial means necessary, and that actually included $25,000 a month in child support and household expenses. But by 2007, Shaniqua Tompkins said this wasn't enough. Now, there is actually some nuance to this, right? Because when two parents conventionally divorce and you have a young child, in this case, Marquise was about 10 years old when they started going back and forth over these child support issues, you don't necessarily want the child to feel like it's this vast transition, right? So if you're splitting custody, like 1 week the child's at his dad's, 1 week at his mom's, and he comes from, a household when they were married where they lived in this big house and maintained this certain lifestyle, it's like you don't want the child to have to spend 1 week at his dad's house, let's say, where he's still maintaining that luxurious lifestyle, but then he goes to his mom's and they're living in this small apartment, and it feels like this drastic change that's hard on the child, that really, he feels the weight of the separation. So child support is meant to reflect proportionally what the higher income earning parent is generating, and also reflect somewhat of the lifestyle that the child lived before the parents were divorced. But I say all that to say, $25,000 is well more than enough, especially back in 2007, almost 20 years ago, to make sure that this child has a more than comfortable lifestyle, right, guys? But Shaniqua didn't think so. In the summer of 2007, you started seeing reports of both 50 and Shaniqua headed to family court. Shaniqua's lawyers would emphasize that 50 has tens and tens of millions of dollars. Meanwhile, 50 Cent's lawyers would claim that Shaniqua is insatiable and her demands keep escalating. She said that $25,000 a month was not enough. And this is where things started to get ugly. About a week later, in July of 2007, an interview between 50 Cent and The Spin outlet was released. And this must have been before things really escalated in the courtroom, because 50 Cent, you'll see, practiced a certain level of restraint here. While he was kind of almost warning the world of how cruel he would get to Marquise's mother in the public light, he actually emphasizes that the reason why he never mentioned Marquise or Marquise's mother in his music was to avoid these ugly crash outs from happening. He said, "You know why I wouldn't do it? Because it would be hard for me to make reference to her in my music without being disrespectful." And then he goes on to compare it to, the love that he had for his mother. He said, "Let's say my mom was using drugs. I'd probably lose respect for her. But if someone else was disrespectful to her, I would respond immediately. And my son, Marquise, has so many of my qualities that I feel like he would do the same thing. Even if it was his father that was disrespecting his mother, he would find some resentment towards me for saying something bad about his mom. So I don't talk about it." Basically, what 50's trying to say is like his love for his own mother was so strong that even if he knew she was doing things that would make 50 lose respect for her, if someone else disrespected her, he would lose it on them, even if his mom deserved that disrespect. And he's saying with his son, because his son adopts so many of the qualities that 50 has, especially the love that both of them had for their respective mothers, he believes that if he started rapping in a negative light about Marquise's mom, Marquise would hold that same resentment towards 50, even if he knew his mom was the one doing wrong. So that's why for the first few years of their disputes in court, 50 wouldn't really make a big spectacle of the whole thing on social media. I mean, there was no social media at the time, but just online, right? But once she started saying that $25,000 a month wasn't enough, 50 became a little more vocal. In 2008, he let the world know a little bit more about the situation, again emphasizing that he didn't want to say anything too disrespectful about Shaniqua because Marquise can eventually see that video, but he detailed the fact that because Shaniqua stuck with him when he had nothing, she felt like she deserved 17% of what 50 Cent had accumulated all throughout his career, just because she was the mother of his child. Now, at this point in time, 50 Cent is probably worth at least $100 million. So if she won 17%, do the math on how much that would actually be. A lot more than $25,000 a month. 50 also claims that Shaniqua would make it hard for 50 to contact or see their child, and he claims a lot of the money he was paying in that child support was actually going to fund her lifestyle rather than Marquise's.
It's crazy. I go through so much, with his mom's. Like, we're not friends anymore. It's a huge adjustment when you got a person that has a sense of entitlement because she was around at that time period when I didn't have much, because I ended up spending everything I had at that point on taking care of us early on. She feels like she should be entitled to the world. Like, I think her friends had her under the impression that she was entitled to 17% of whatever I was earning, period. You know, and that's not how it works. New York State law is you're entitled to 17%, but it's when you're making up until the point where you're making $80,000. So if you make $80,000, they're gonna tell you to pay 17% of your paycheck for your child. Then when you reach the tax bracket that I'm in, they gotta make a decision based on the lifestyle that the child's been living, you know, to maintain that upkeep. But she's really having a bigger adjustment to her personal lifestyle, because she had a bag habit that cost more than the child support. And she's Louis Vuitton, Gucci, Yves Saint Laurent, Chanel. Every time you see her, right now she's supposed to be going through hard times because the house burned down, but every time you see her, she got a new designer bag in her hand. She got new designer glasses on, you know what I'm saying? I don't really say how I feel about her because my son might see the tape. But it's hard. It's hard when you know, it gets to the point that a woman's trying to keep your son away from you. She'll say in public that I don't reach out or I ain't trying to find him, and to make me to feel that's the only thing she got left. It's him, so she trying to use him to hurt me the best way she can, you know. To work itself out, it's just a pain in the ass.
But of course, like we know, there are two sides to every story, and from Shaniqua's perspective, 50 Cent made promises to her when he had nothing that he's now not fulfilling. So by early 2008, she actually took him to court, sued him for $50 million, and said that 50 had promised to buy her and Marquise a home to live in, but instead he's now trying to kick her out. Shaniqua's lawyer had said this was a house that was promised to Shaniqua up until the closing of the home. Then he decided to not put it in her name. Now he's trying to put her out of the house. This would mean evicting his own son. This is someone who was with him when he was shot and who nursed him back to health. I think what he's doing is horrible. Ironically, it also mentions that Shaniqua had met 50 Cent when she was 15, the exact same age that 50 Cent's mother was when she gave birth to him. Now, in this lawsuit, she had asked the court to declare that she has the right to live in this house. But she filed, I believe, a separate lawsuit for $50 million that was filed on the claim that 50 had promised in an oral agreement to take care of her for life, since again, she had stuck with him when he had nothing. The judge quickly tossed this out, and 50 was ready to toss Shaniqua and his own son to the curb. A couple days after this, he called into a radio station. He claimed that Shaniqua had actually moved her new boyfriend into the very house that 50 Cent was paying for, and warned her that her and Marquise had up until the 30th of the month to pack their bags and leave.
I was giving her money like I was giving her $25,000 a month. And she went in, she thinking she gonna get $50,000.
Oh, damn.
Wow. You see what I'm saying? And then when the reality hit her, like that 17,000, that 17% is real, but it applies to $80,000. If you're making $40,000 and your man is making $40,000, they want 17% out of his check directly applied to the child.
See, you the one that said she was a nurse.
I never. Look, he's a nurse.
50, what is good with this dude? What, like, when did he move in? Did he really move into the crib?
Yeah, he did. He stayed there.
And he knows you own it?
How you gonna know? You can see the little boy right there.
So do they got a baby together?
No, they don't have no babies together.
So are they out the house now, or are they still there?
They got to the 30th.
Damn.
Now, you notice he said they have till the 30th to pack their bags and leave. Well, in a disturbing fate of irony, in the following month, on May 30th, 2008, at 4 a.m., Shaniqua Tompkins and Marquise were rushed out of this very same home after a fire had ripped through the house and burnt it to the ground. 50 Cent had been in Louisiana filming a movie at the time of the fire, but Shaniqua Tompkins and Marquise, again, were there and just narrowly escaped getting caught in the fire. Shaniqua quickly spoke to the press after the fire occurred, saying, "Who do I think did it? Curtis Jackson. He threatened me on Monday that he was going to have someone visit me. My kids are in the house. Who would try to kill your own kids? He's supposed to be all about being a gangster. That's not a gangster. That's a coward.
Mr. Jackson did this.
You do think so?
Yes, I know so.
Why do you say that?
He threatened me on Monday.
He did.
He threatened me. Look, watch what I'll do. I'll have someone come kill you. He threatened me. He threatened me on Monday, and this is what he did.
How long were you two together?
We were together for 13 years. The relation just ended over a year ago. He cannot accept that I have moved on with my life, and he felt like he was going to strip me of everything. And I didn't allow it. I fought back, and this is what he's trying to do. He tried to kill me and his own child.
50, of course, would deny this and even bring forth a $20 million defamation lawsuit against Shaniqua for speaking to the press and accusing him of being behind the fire. 50's lawyers had also filed a visitation petition claiming that Shaniqua had not given up the new address to where they were going to move since, of course, the house they were living in had burnt down in the fire, and 50 believed that this was in an effort to keep him away from actually seeing his son. Of course, if he doesn't know the address of where his son is living at, how's he going to actually reach him? His lawyers at this point in time had said that Shaniqua had basically completely cut 50 out of his son's life, but Shaniqua had flipped it to say that the fire was a threat to her life and her child's life, and because of that, 50 doesn't deserve to know the next place they live. And she actually took it a step further, filing a restraining order against 50 Cent to where when 50 had visitation with his son, he would have to drop his son off at the curb to avoid contact with Shaniqua. And it was by this point where 50 Cent and Marquise's relationship began to fall apart. Shaniqua would claim constantly that 50 Cent never reached out, that he wasn't active in his son's life, he never made an effort, and 50 would claim that it was Shaniqua who was brainwashing his son, making him think that 50 was this evil man, which in turn drew a rift in their relationship. And as far as Marquise's perspective on it, by the time he was around 20 years old, he actually said that the relationship between him and 50 had gone south right around the time when these child support battles started happening. The ones that eventually led up to the destruction of the home that Marquise and his mother were living in. He's asked what his relationship was like with 50 Cent when he was younger and at what point it changed. And Marquise said, "It completely went south when I was probably 10 or 11 years old." And keep in mind, he was born in the later months, October of 1996. So him being 10 or 11, that meant that it had to be somewhere between late 2006 to early 2008, right around the time when that house was burnt down. Marquise continues saying he really wasn't around much. It kind of dwindled down as time went on and certain events happened. For me, I just started feeling differently about him because growing up, my dad was my superhero. He was on television, he does this, he does that, he would take me to school. It was like having a father who's Superman, more or less. But then, as I got older, you start realizing things or you start seeing certain patterns, and it takes an effect on your relationship with people. That's what happened with me and my father. He's still alive, but I can't tell you our last conversation or the last time we even had a dialogue. Now again, this was all the way later in 2017, and there was some key things that we'll touch on shortly that transpired before this, where it definitely made sense that by the time Marquise was already 20 years old, it had been years since he had actually spoken to 50. But in the meantime, we get into a new decade, 2010, and at this point, 50 Cent is still trying to have some sort of relationship with Marquise. He tries to motivate him to start his own sneaker brand, even offering investment in it. At this point, he's paying $6,700 a month in child support to make sure that Marquise has got what he needs, but he actually also starts dating a woman by the name of Daphne Joy in this very year. They seem madly in love at the beginning, and on September 1st, 2012, they actually welcomed a child into this world. 50 had his second son, Sire, with Daphne Joy. But it wouldn't take long for things to absolutely crumble in both of these relationships that 50 Cent had. In July of 2013, some really ugly text messages between Marquise and 50 Cent had leaked to the internet, which seemingly saw 50 Cent attempt to try and pick Marquise up for visitation, but it led to something much uglier. "Hey, I'm outside the house at the front door. I came to the front door, then the lights went off. What's up?" Marquise said, "You're lying. You're outside?" 50 said, "I saw you looking out the window. Good luck in life. You're gonna need it." Marquise asked, "How are you gonna see me when I was in the basement?" 50 said, "F you. You're your mother's child. I need a blood test because that D-sucking B you call mom was effing the whole time. I don't think you're funny at all. I drove out here for nothing. Now, before we continue reading this text message back and forth, it does raise an important question. Why did Shaniqua and 50 Cent end up breaking up when it seemed like everything was going pretty smooth with them up until the point where 50 Cent got super rich, right? If Shaniqua was there for the bad times, why didn't she stick around for the good times? Well, according to her, it was actually because 50 Cent was abusive, both emotionally and physically.
First time he hit me, I was pregnant with Marquise. Belly out to here.
Well, let me ask you. So Marquise, I'm pregnant with Marquise, so he's been 12 years. Why didn't you want to be with him? Just, at this point, he's a famous rapper. Junior is clicking. He's a sex symbol in a sense because he's in great shape. Why wouldn't you want to be with someone at that point in his career?
Because he was abusive. Well, he still is abusive. I'm just not in his presence, but he's abusive. Emotionally, physically, he's abusive. And the last straw for me was he hit me in front of my daughter. And I said, as a mother, if I allowed her to see him hit me and stay with him, what example am I setting for my daughter?
Now, of course, there's always two sides to every story. In this case, I guess 3 sides to every story. So I felt like it was important to kind of share Shaniqua's perspective on this as well, right? And this is a stance that she's maintained to this day. But it was on that day in 2013, the day that all these text messages were being sent back and forth between 50 and Marquise, that their relationship had been completely destroyed for good. 50 declares it right here. Tell your mother she won. She has you, and I'll make another. I will have nothing to do with you. Don't text me ever again. Delete my number. Good luck with your life, man. I tried to come talk to you. You didn't have to have me come all the way out there if you didn't want to see me, you little a-hole. At this point, Marquise is around 17 years old. He graduates from high school the next year. 50 Cent is not at the ceremony. Marquise would post a picture of himself breaking down at his graduation on Instagram with the caption saying, "Yeah, I broke down. I was really excited to see my pops at my graduation today, but he never showed up. SMH. My sister and mama is always there for me. Just know that you wasn't. I did it without you." By the time 2017 rolls around, Marquise is approaching his 21st birthday, and 50 Cent celebrates it by making a nice little post on Instagram, emphasizing the fact that he will very soon be freed from paying child support. Graduating from child support, 20 years to all my brothers, hang in there. LOL, 4 months left, no more free ride. She might want to go get a job now. I paid $1.3 million to date. I hope she saves some money because that last $30,000 ain't nothing. And things would only get even worse if you could imagine that. It would really reach a boiling point in 2018 when 50 Cent's son Marquise would take a picture standing right next to the son of Kenneth Supreme McGriff, the man who authorities believe is behind the hit on 50 Cent, where he was shot 9 times. The fact that Marquise heard the shots that 50 Cent was hit with and is now 18 years later taking a picture next to the son of the man who very likely did that hit. Of course, it speaks volumes to how bad the relationship between Marquise and 50 had got. And 50 had commented on the picture saying, "If both these little craps got hit by a bus, I would not have a bad day." And you might be wondering this entire time, 50 is now raising a second son, right? How is that going? Well, I forgot to mention, back in 2013, right around the time when 50 Cent had tried to visit Marquise was allegedly closing the blinds on 50, and that's when that whole text argument had happened. Just 2 months before that, in June of 2013, 50 Cent was charged in Los Angeles after an argument occurred at Daphne Joy's condo, which is, of course, the mother of his younger son. And according to police and prosecutors, an altercation occurred where 50 had allegedly damaged property inside the home, including furniture, lighting fixtures, etc., with the damage estimated over $7,000. And authorities initially charged him with 1 count of misdemeanor domestic violence and 4 counts of misdemeanor vandalism. 50 had denied physically harming Daphne, but in the following month, he reached a plea agreement where he pleaded no contest to a single misdemeanor vandalism charge, while the domestic violence charge and the other vandalism counts were dismissed. He was sentenced to 3 years of probation, 30 days of community service, and 52 weeks of domestic violence counseling. So it's safe to say the relationship between 50 and both of his baby mothers was not in the best state. But he did seem to remain quite close with his second son, Sire. The same can't be said for Marquise, who didn't just lose his father's sympathy, but also lost the entire public sympathy when he got on Instagram Live in 2022 and basically tried to cry poor, saying that he had to work off of nothing, living in the expensive state of New York, having to build his life out there, and all he had to keep him afloat was a measly $6,700 a month, paid for by none other than Curtis Jackson, his father, who didn't speak to him, but was still paying him $6,700 a month just to live. Huh? Now guys, do the math on that. That's 80 grand a year for this kid to live, who's not a kid at this point. He's a grown adult, and he basically is acting like he's got absolutely nothing when his father, who he doesn't speak to anymore, is still paying him 67 grand a month. And the guy who he's on Instagram Live with rightfully asks, like, you know, your mother should cover the rest of whatever you need, right? 6,700 should be more than enough to cover your rent in a decent apartment, your food, your clothes. You're old enough to work, right? So I'm assuming this is probably what 50 was talking about when he was talking about entitlement, right?
I know what it feels like to have nothing, all right? And I had to rebuild my life over with $6,700 a month.
Marquise, I know you feel like that ain't a lot of money, but it's a lot of people here watching right now. Girls that's getting $200 a month child.
$600-700 a month in the state of New York City. You do the math.
Oh, I done the math. I've been in child support, bro. I went to jail for it. And if he's contributing $6,700, that means your mom's got the other half. It ain't just for him to take care of you. She got to take care of you.
If I told you right now, right, you got to start your life over right now with $6,700 a month and rebuild your life.
Yes.
Can you do it?
With $6,700, I can.
You have nothing.
$6,700, yes, I can. I'm from the
I'm
from Edo, but $6,700, I'm good.
That's what I'm
month,
saying.
nigga.
I know what.
And guys, the worst part is, remember earlier in this video I was saying 50 Cent was paying $25,000 a month in child support. You might be asking, how did it get lowered to $6,700 a month? Well, it was because when Shaniqua had took 50 to court to try and get $50 million from him, 50 knew that he was actually paying too much in child support, so he ended up taking himself to family court, and once a judge reviewed everything, they determined that he only needed to pay $6,700. $25,000 a month was way too much, and Marquise over here basically admits that.
Tell y'all why I brought that up. Uncle Rel said what their relationship. I said, yeah, when they was together, he was giving her $25,000 a month when he was in a relationship.
Right, cool.
Yeah, but you should have said that off of the live, homie.
Yes, bro.
She said it on the live.
Okay, cool. So $25K a month. Then we took himself on child support. It turned it to $6,700, bro.
50 would, of course, clap back to this whole 6,700 thing with a funny little skit.
I had to rebuild my life over with $6,700 a month.
Marquise, I know you feel like
Fuck, this nigga is crazy. You're 25 years old. Why you still talking about child support? I get $5,000 a year when it was with me. That's why I took his mother to child support, because the bitch thought that she was supposed to get that much more, she wanted more. I told that motherfucker nothing.
That niggas want. Look, said, look, you know I don't never ask for shit, man. But I was thinking, nigga, can nigga get a little extra $6,700 a month for the shit we been doing?
Yeah, I'm almost gonna fire up in niggas.
That niggas play too much.
He would also release an audiobook where he reflected on the relationship he had with his son, saying that it basically went wrong because, like I mentioned earlier in this video, from the moment 50 Cent got rich, he had said in interviews he did not want to spoil his son, right? And from 50's perspective, once he was no longer with Shaniqua, the mother of Marquise, she wanted to control as much of 50's finances as possible since she was with him when he was broke. And her only way of doing so was through Marquise. But Marquise, loving his mother, according to 50, was manipulated by her to look at 50 as this villain, someone who was never around for Marquise, who did not supply him with a good enough lifestyle financially, right? And with 50 looking at both of them like, all right, Shaniqua, I'm no longer with you, and I keep telling you to get a job, and I'm still paying you 25 grand a month, and you're not working, you're not doing anything to actually contribute here. Marquise is old enough where you don't have to be, you know, a 24/7 stay-at-home mother. You have a bit of a sense of entitlement trying to ask me for more money. And meanwhile, Marquise, I'm helping you start these online sneaker businesses. I'm paying your mother thousands of dollars a month for you to go to school. I'm supporting you, trying to visit you, all these things. But you're not willing to look at my side of things. You're instead being brainwashed by your mother, thinking I'm a deadbeat when in reality, she's not even letting me communicate with you. And then you're crying poor on Instagram Live when I'm paying you $6,700. It's an entitlement thing all around.
I don't even know if a sit down can actually restore the situation. It's just more so it's an olive branch. Like if you up for it, I'm up for it. I'm definitely willing to sit down with him and so I can hear his perspective and gain a little bit of understanding. I mean, like, we're both men at the end of the day. We should be able to agree and disagree and it not be a problem. He believes that from his perspective, he thinks I'm entitled when that's not the case. Like, it's never been about the money for me. It's more so the relationship and for me personally. Like, it's more so for the relationship more than the money to me, because if it's about the money, then I'm willing to put it up to make at least make the situation a little bit better if possible. Honestly, I don't know what to expect from the situation. If we do have a sit down, I don't necessarily know what to expect or what it looks like. But if it takes me paying him for his time, I'm more than willing to do that. Maybe we could just gain understanding of each other. Maybe we could understand each other a little bit better. Maybe that's what a better situation looks like. But I can't tell you exactly what it should look like or what it would look like. Because then that's like me being a kid again and just living in my dreams. You get older, you're more mature, you start thinking about things, and it's like you might have questions. I mean, it's just a situation that's unfortunate, but it's like, well, what can you do at this point?
From Marquise's perspective of things, he believes that 50 thinks he's entitled, but in reality, he doesn't care about the money. All he wants is a relationship with 50. That's what he told TMZ, and keep in mind, 50's response to this is basically the fact that if that's really how he felt, he can tell me that instead of going to the press. This is all just for attention, according to 50.
Is there any chance at a reconciliation between you and your son? Because a lot of people from the outside, the boy looked just like you. A lot of people from the outside think that situation is sad, man, that y'all can't come to something.
It is sad. It's a sad situation, right? And when you pray for success, you don't necessarily pray for the things that come with it, right? And there's no such thing as success without jealousy, without envy, or entitlement. And entitlement is growing in someone you love in the scariest part, right? And his mom developed an entitlement that cannot be met. Filtering that energy through his actual personal interests. Let's say now that he's starting to like females, he's conscious of what kind of shoes he want to wear. I need these Jordans, the retro Jordans is coming, different things. And then his mother go, all right, I'll get them for you, but it just bothers me because you're supposed to have them all. So while being a privileged child, he feels deprived. When you had everything I didn't have. I can tell you how much my kids cost. In New York State, 1.360. You see what I'm saying? And I don't have an issue with paying the support fund. The reason why I'm the way I am with those kind of situations, I pay my support that year that the baby's born. Move the money to the account, let it, and it automatically disperses a certain amount of money per each month. So with him, I noticed over the years like it developed, because I blamed it on his mom for a long time. But it's not his mother, it's him. Like, I've gone places where he was at and he left.
Fifth, you love your son?
I used to. You ask yourself how long, a complicated question would say, how long can you love something that don't love you back? You see, so in this experience, you look and you say, I didn't think success would cost me my firstborn, but it's the situation it is. Like my grandfather would say, if rather like a snake, if it slithered like a snake, is it a snake or do you need to be bit?
And while 50 might think that Marquise is only doing this for attention, only saying that he really wants a relationship with 50 as a way to make himself look good in the public light, 50 is not making it easy if Marquise genuinely does want a connection with his father, because when he's asked if he ever sees a reality where the two can make amends, he says those days are far gone. Now we know that 50 Cent had a long line of oppositions throughout the decades, right? It wasn't just his son, it wasn't just his baby mothers. One of the bigger public feuds that 50 had actually came from another hip-hop mogul who, of course, you guys know as the Diddler. Now, 50 might have had the more successful vodka partnership, may have made more money on the Forbes list. He may have cracked a lot more jokes at Diddy's expense than Diddy ever did to 50, but for a short period of time, it seemed like Diddy may have had the last laugh, because in 2021, it was announced that Diddy had started dating the mother of one of 50's children, Daphne Joy. 50 would post a picture of the two of them together, saying, "Nah, me and Puffy fight over business, but if he likes the girl, he likes the girl. I don't give a crap." He might have given a crap though, because he continued the trolling. He posted a picture with his son, the same son he had with Daphne Joy, and said, "Oh, that's your mommy over there with Puffy, LOL. Remember when I told you the other day, these bees are crazy." Daphne would actually reply in the comments saying, "Please stop doing this to me. I never bother you, and I'm an outstanding mother to our son. Can we please just focus on that? Please?" Daphne would also post a picture celebrating Diddy's birthday in 2022, confirming that the two were dating. And 50 Cent would ultimately be asked what he thought about this in an interview, and he said he hadn't kissed Daphne in 10 years, so somebody had to do it. Now, 50 Cent would warn us a considerable amount of time before everything would fall apart for Diddy, telling the crowd at one of his shows that Diddy did it to Tupac and that he won't go to any Diddy parties.
That's why I don't be going to the Puffy parties. Hug you from the front and the back at the same time. Oh, maybe I said that about Puffy because he got Tupac killed.
And it was in December of 2023, about a month after Cassie dropped that lawsuit, that 50 Cent would announce that he was developing a documentary on Diddy, similar to Surviving R. Kelly, even slapping R. Kelly's face onto Diddy's face and posting it onto Twitter. I could probably show you guys 100 posts of 50 trashing Diddy over the following months, because there was tons of ammo to work with, right? Diddy was getting a different lawsuit filed against him damn near every day after Cassie opened the floodgates, and one of the most interesting ones that got 50 Cent into a little bit of a pickle came from Lil Rod. Now, again, I'm not going to dive into every accusation Lil Rod made in his lawsuit. You guys can check out 50's documentary for that. It gets crazy. He said he woke up sometimes after studio sessions with Diddy and he was sore. He doesn't know from what, but he was sore. It's all alleged. But in his lawsuit, it also states, or he accuses, Daphne Joy, again, the mother of 50 Cent's son, of being paid a monthly fee from Diddy specifically to participate in freak-offs. Of course, 50 wasted no time trolling his baby mama on Instagram, posting a caption saying, "I didn't know you were an S-worker, you little S-worker, LOL, this stuff is a movie." But what gets even crazier is that 50 Cent wasn't just trolling. He went to family court and tried to seek sole custody of his and Daphne Joy's son, who was 11 years old, after she was named an S-worker in the lawsuit filed against Diddy. Now, Daphne would come with some accusations of her own, but she wasn't pointing the finger at Diddy, instead at 50. She accused 50 of being an absent father and even physically abusing her. Now, 50 would send Daphne a lawyer's letter demanding that she retract her statement of the R word. And then 50 claims that she responded with her lawyers demanding that 50 give Daphne millions of dollars and stop attempting to seek sole custody of their shared son in return for taking down the post where she accuses 50 of the R word. Because of this, 50 Cent would actually go on to sue Daphne Joy for defamation, his own baby mama. $1 million in damages is what he was seeking for that one Instagram post she put up where she accused him of physical abuse and the R word. Around this same time, Netflix picks up 50 Cent's Diddy documentary. Once the Diddy trial would commence, there was one anonymous victim who testified against Diddy and went under the alias Jane Doe. If you're wondering why 50 Cent spent 2 years compiling as much heinous information as he could against Diddy and making it his mission to completely slaughter this man's reputation, you might find your answer in this Jane Doe victim's testimony during the trial. She was a victim of S trafficking, who had been in a relationship with Diddy from 2021 to 2024. After allegedly participating in multiple freak-offs and hotel nights, Jane Doe began to question why Diddy wanted her to do these things so badly. Similar to Cassie, she alleges that Diddy forced her to have S with other men. On the stand, she accused Diddy of being a CUCK, saying that she started to believe Diddy was bisexual after he kept making her have sex with other men while he watched. Essentially because Diddy was too afraid to do the act himself. She also said her and Diddy got into a physical altercation just a couple weeks after the Cassie hotel video went public. She allegedly thought that Diddy was seeing another woman when he was on a family trip, and this led her to allegedly call him a PDF while pushing him. And allegedly Diddy fought back very aggressively. Now, many people immediately thought that this Jane Doe victim was actually Daphne Joy, for several reasons. Number one, of course, the timelines add up. Diddy and Daphne Joy were dating from 2021 to 2024. Meanwhile, this victim was dating Diddy in the same period. Number two, like we looked at before, Lil Rod actually named Daphne Joy as being one of the women that Diddy was paying for the freak-offs, and this was in around 2022. Also aligning with the timeline, Jane Doe testified to be a single mother whose birthday was in February. Daphne Joy's birthday is in February, and she was also a single mother. Jane Doe also mentioned that her child's father had a contentious relationship with Diddy, and we all know about 50 Cent's rivalry with Diddy at this point. People thought maybe this Jane Doe could also be Young Miami, but Young Miami, I believe, actually wrote a letter to the judge in defense of Diddy, so she wouldn't be up here saying all this stuff if that was the case. Also, Young Miami has 2 children. Meanwhile, the Jane Doe mentions only having 1 son, which again, Daphne Joy has 1 son, and it's of course with 50 Cent. Now, speaking of their son, on the day that Jane Doe was testifying, 50 Cent had posted the following on his Instagram. It's a picture of him and his son with the caption, "What the F?" And right now, with 50's second son still being quite young, not having a social media account or the ability to troll like 50's first son, Marquise, this is where 50 and his son Sire currently stand. Of course, the relationship between 50 and Sire's mother, Daphne Joy, is basically irredeemable. One would argue even worse than the relationship between Shaniqua Tompkins, Marquise's mother, and 50 Cent, due to the fact that 50 has all these public records on social media of calling Daphne Joy an HOE. The same restraint that 50 once had in 2007 when he initially started going through disputes with his first son's mother, but didn't want to talk badly about her in the public light because he knew that Marquise could one day see everything he says. He obviously doesn't hold back today in 2026 when talking about the mother of his second child. And it's concerning to think on what's going to happen when Sire is old enough to see all these things documented on the internet. But one question we still haven't answered is, how did 50 Cent's relationship evolve with his grandparents, the very same individuals who brought 50 in at the darkest moment of his life, who raised 50, who were there for him through his ups and downs, and are arguably the most loyal family that 50 had? Well, you might be happy to know that 50 remained very close to his grandmother.
I'm my grandmother's baby. They can't see it because I do the 50 Cent thing. But in the house, the entire time, I was my grandmother's baby. Even my oldest, our relationship, I understand it because his mother's baby. He's exactly who I was with my grandmother. But my grandmother
Like I used to paint our toes, sit there and paint our toes in the actual room. My grandfather would go, let the boy go outside and play with everybody.
However, sadly, in September of 2014, 50 Cent's grandmother tragically passed away. When he's asked how he first heard the news, 50 said, "I had to go to Power, the TV show, to rehearse the action sequences, and I was on the treadmill working with the stunt coordinators when my aunt called me and told me I needed to come to the hospital. I had the chance to talk to her a little bit before she passed. My grandmother was coherent the whole time. I've seen a lot of people die around me, but I saw them die on the corner that we were standing on. Outside is a different danger. It's like if you go to the hospital, my grandmother's up, she's there, she's alert, she responded to my voice, and then after I see her, her blood pressure starts to drop, and then she's gone." So it was almost like 50 had a little more closure knowing that she passed in a peaceful way. Even posting a picture of her on Instagram with the caption saying, "My angel, God has blessed me with letting her see me win. She was proud of me. Now how I see myself is all that matters." And 50's grandmother was definitely very supportive of him. Even if she didn't listen to his music ever, she still always made sure to buy his albums just so she could watch his sales go up.
Did you think it would be a sex symbol rap?
I'm sexy, Mom.
He's sexy. Did you think he would be a sexy rap star?
No, I didn't.
Did not?
No.
No. Okay. I hear you always keep his favorites in the fridge just in case he comes by.
Yes.
What are his favorites?
Cheese, crackers, and cranberry juice.
Cranberry juice. Well, won't be hard to find a woman to please that.
A little less than 10 years after this, 50 Cent would then lose his grandfather, the husband of course, the grandmother that 50 Cent viewed as a mother to him. And this grandfather was, of course, the father figure in 50's life. But he did live a very full life, I believe living till 91 years old. And 50 had announced his passing on Instagram, showing that he did have a sense of closure, of course knowing that his grandfather lived a very full and long life. He posted saying, "You do know that none of this stuff really matters. We can't take it with us. I lost my grandfather last night. Now he can go everywhere with me." He also posted this on Instagram with the caption reading, "My old man is a tough act to follow. He sacrificed for all of us. He made me smile every time I saw him. The last time he went to the hospital, he was dehydrated, so the nurse couldn't find a vein. I came in. I said, 'Pop, you all right?' He said, 'No.' She stick me with that again, and I'm gonna start shooting. LOL, I almost fell out." And although 50 is at peace with the passing of his two grandparents, the two people who were most supportive all throughout his life and his career, it doesn't really seem like he's at peace with anyone else in the world, even himself. And it's sad because he always takes on this me against the world energy, but it doesn't even feel like he's at one with himself. And then you look at everyone in his inner circle, his two sons, the mother of those two children. We don't know if 50 will ever have a proper, healthy relationship with them. He's also made it clear that he has no plans on ever getting married. He says he's made a lot of mistakes in his life, but that's not one of them. And while we could speculate on whether 50 Cent is completely alone in this world, whether he has any real family, anyone he can truly turn to, you won't get a clear answer. But what you most definitely will get a clear answer on is the fact that any outbursts we see from 50 Cent, anytime we see him take things a little too far, disrespecting people in a way that seems completely irrational or uncalled for, just remember the child in Southside Jamaica, Queens, that came home at the age of 8 years old to the fact that his mother was no longer on this earth, or the fact that he came onto this earth without ever knowing his father, or the fact that once he became a father, his own son witnessed him get shot 9 times and a little over 10 years later ends up taking a picture in celebration of the fact that he was standing next to the son of the alleged killer. 50 Cent has not made life easy for the people around him, for the people against him, or for himself. But does it stem from the fact that 50 himself never had things come easy? Let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you in the next one.
I study rap
Fabolous
for a living.